Hi, and welcome back. Welcome to week 7, the last week of our course on adolescent development. And I hope you've learned a lot. We've had a chance to look at everything from neural development, how the brain is developing in young men and women. And we've looked at the 4 major areas of development: physical, cognitive, social, and emotional. We've also examined the varied roles that family, intimacy, peers, sexuality, and culture play in the development of young people and how that might affect your ministries. Finally, we looked at some exceptionality and dysfunctional issues that we can expect in adolescence, and perhaps some of you chose in your own personal research to do some looking into one of those 2 areas. This course has hopefully prepared you to think about adolescence differently than maybe you did 6 or 7 weeks ago. Some critics I've heard, including myself at one time, have said that youth ministers spend way too much time with teens and not enough time with the little guys. And while it is often true they do spend more time with the teenagers, the fact is the teenagers need more time. I've been a volunteer at my church for nearly 40-something years working with 2- and 3-year-olds, and I love those little guys, but they don't need the amount of time that teenagers need. This critical time of life is a pliable time of life that you as a youth minister can have an incredible impact on the future of these young people. And that's the kind of thing that I hope that you picked up as we've looked at each one of these areas through the last few weeks. The teen years are a tough time, and as a developmentalist, I've sometimes said that if we could maybe snip out those years between 12 and 18, most of our lives would be easier. There are very few people who look back on their, especially middle school years and perhaps high school years, and say those are the best years of my life. I mean, more often than not, people look back on those years, even the popular kids, feeling left out, feeling frustrated, feeling misunderstood. It's just a tough time. But on the other hand, this is also some of the most formative years of life. People start asking children when they're little, what do they want to do when they grow up? But as kids approach their senior years of high school, they have to start making decisions: where they're going to go to school, what are they going to study. And as a college professor, I know that many people even graduate from college still not sure what they want to do with themselves. But adolescents are expected to have at least some idea, and that's a tough thing to do with some of the limitations that we've looked at. But people that are important in their lives, their families, their close peers and mentors, their coaches, and certainly their youth ministers can have a tremendous impact on their ability to manage that time of life and the decisions that they'll make regarding their careers and their social relationships and their religion, of course. In order to do the job most effectively that we are trying to do as Christians and pastors, in order to work like Jesus, we have to meet people where they are. I always found it interesting as I've read through Scripture, even the Old Testament, how God chose often to seek as leaders people who weren't the ordinary leaders. They weren't people sometimes even within the Jewish community. Jesus met people where they were. The woman at the well is one of my favorite stories. Here's a lady that the typical Jew wouldn't even have spoken with, and yet he talked to her. He asked for a drink of water. He went to her home, and she was converted because of it. And I hope that's what you've picked up from this last 6 or 7 weeks, is that as we can begin to understand the teens that we're working with, we can meet them where they are. Regardless of the troubles that they have or the decisions that they're making or the struggles that they're going through, when we can understand them and what it's like to be them, even though we've grown through it, that we can be more effective. Youth ministers in some ways are the most influential people in a teen's life. Their parents, as we've seen, are always going to be influential, and kids do care what their parents think. Their peers are influential, and kids do care what their peers think. But children and young people choose their youth minister. They choose to engage, and they choose to listen. So when they give that power away to you as a youth pastor, that's a lot of power that you can wield over them in a very productive and positive way during this formative period. And what I find kind of interesting, I've been a soccer player, soccer coach all my life, and referee, and I know I can have an influence on people in a lot of ways. And I mentored those kids that were on my soccer team all the way from the little ones up through college. But I was only mentoring one area of their lives. I was helping them as athletes, and as a teacher, I'm largely only working in their academic arena. But as a youth pastor, and what we've done these past 4 or 5 weeks is address how you can be impactful in all of the areas of their lives, their cultural lives, their social lives, their cognitive lives through their grades and studies and their social relationships. And that's just an exciting, thrilling piece of what it means to be a youth minister. I want to tell you, as we close this period of the course, I want to tell you a story about how impactful a youth minister was to me. When I was a young person, I wasn't seriously involved in the church. I went to church largely because of the girl I wanted to date, which is a terrible reason to go to church, but it worked. And here I am today, but it wasn't just because I chose to go. It was because of a man named Tom. Tom was the youth pastor at our church, and he recognized me as a sort of socially awkward, quiet, introverted guy. And he reached out to me, and he joked with me, and he listened to me, and he never once pressured me. And even looking back, I found myself drawn to him and wanting to please him and wanting to be interested in things that he was interested in. And I really didn't know why. But as an adult looking back, I think I do know why, because he understood me. He met me exactly where I was, and he knew that I was not the kind of guy that was going to go in for real hard sell church talk, because that just wasn't me. And yet he saw potential in me. And one of the interesting things that happened as I was going into my senior year of high school, I was planning to be a pilot. And my youth minister knew that, and he sent me a letter, and he said, I request your attendance at a meeting at my office. And he gave me a date and a time. So I showed up, and he said in short to me, he said, I couldn't let you go off to college without telling you I think God has a bigger plan for you than to fly airplanes. And he said, would you consider at least thinking about something ministry oriented? And I thought about it, and he had earned my trust and my respect. And he's the only person, including my parents, who ever really went out of their way to say, here's what I see in you. And that's not a criticism on anybody else in my life, but it's a testament to the impact of this important man in my life. And so I said, sure, I'll think about it. And he took me to several Christian colleges as a prospective student, and in fact I enrolled in one, graduated, and as I told you at the beginning of this course, I ended up spending a couple years as a youth minister. Even though that wasn't my career path inevitably, I still see myself as a pastor. I'm a part of the ministry of believers, and I minister to people every day. And I can look back and think, if it hadn't been for Tom, I don't know where I'd be today. So, as a concluding word of encouragement and hope for you, I hope and know that you will be a Tom to a bunch of people throughout your career. And the skills that I have tried to provide for you through your activities and assignments through this course hopefully have helped you do that job even better than you might have already been doing it. So for all of the dozens and hundreds of children that will pass through your church and your youth ministries and programs in these future years, I wish you the very best, and I thank you for investing in this course and for investing your lives in the ministry of the church. Blessings to you, and good luck in this last week, and I hope this has been helpful for you.